Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Biggleswade Town Council meeting this evening. Usual reminder to meeting attendees that this is a formal meeting. I can advise that members of the public will be given an opportunity to speak during the public open session, but not at other times. The meeting is being filmed, and by being present, attendees are deemed to have agreed to be filmed and to the use of those images and sound recordings. I can advise that attendees should not disclose any personal information of individuals, as this would infringe the data protection rights of that individual. And as always, please can I ask everyone to mute their microphones when not speaking. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence. We have none. Everyone is here this evening, which is with the exception of one. So Councillor Sajid is not here. Apologies. No, there's no apologies from Councillor Sajid. Next item on the agenda, declarations of interest. Any declarations, any items in relation to pecuniary, non-pecuniary on the agenda, please? Anybody? Councillor Patel. 9A. Okay. Okay, thank you. Councillor Strong.
Non-pecuniary 17A.
Thank you. Anyone else? No. Okay. So Town Mayor's announcement, we'll move on to that. So I've got a few things this time. Prior to the annual statutory, on the 10th of May, I attended Edward Peak Middle School, former my old school, and the purpose of the visit actually was to have a look around the school to see what the plans and preparations were for the conversion from 3 to 2 tier. Really enjoyed to actually meet some of the pupils and see what the school's doing and the plans for the future. So there's some major changes actually happening there in terms of the structure of the building and converting existing buildings to different purposes. So that was really interesting. And the science lab was still in exactly the same place it was about 40 years ago. So that was also interesting. On the 6th of June, like many other members here, attended the 80th commemoration of D-Day, the 80th anniversary. Again, really well organised event from a town council perspective. Really nice to attend that. But I particularly want to thank the officers that organised that, particularly to the community development manager, but obviously the head of governance and the community partnerships. And I also want to recognise Councillor Woodhead's contribution to that event as well, because I think it's important to recognise that. But a good event by all, and I think well received by everyone. And I think there was a lot of people there, particularly during the daytime, more than perhaps we might have anticipated, which was great. And again in the evening, went the lighting of the beacon as well. So all in all, a good event. And I think Biggleswade, it's fair to say, does events well, and residents do like to see that. On the 9th of June, on Sunday the 9th of June, again like others, I attended the duck race. We're at Dunalbone, which again really nicely organised. It's a big event actually now for the Carnival Committee, and it's nice to actually be involved in that. Albeit I had to leave early because the next announcement was in relation to the next event I attended on the 9th of June was the His Majesty's Lord Lieutenants of Bedfordshire's Thanksgiving, so the annual Thanksgiving event, and that's essentially was thanking all the volunteers. Really good event, and one of the highlights for me particularly was it probably shouldn't be, but it's the fact that "You'll Never Walk Alone" was one of the tunes that were played. But overall, a really nice event, and if you ever have the opportunity to attend it, I would recommend it. Very good. So I'm going to move on to the next item, which is public open session. So we have no members of the public other than Councillor Fage. Councillor Fage, did you wish to speak? Go ahead.
Hello. So only on 9C, item 9C, which is the Shortmead House potential permissive path. So ward councillors have been engaged about this because officers have been working on it at Central Beds. So all 5 of us were emailed. Admittedly, it's not in Biggleswade East, but they were courteous enough to email me, which I'm very grateful for. And officers have outlined 5 potential options in terms of this public, in terms of this right of way. Well, it's not a technically a right of way, but what the landowner has chosen to do in terms of closing it, which he has the right to do. Officers have laid out options, everything from basically do nothing to do what the proposal suggests. And I'm very happy to share that email, and I won't go into detail about all of the options because I can't remember all of the ins and outs of them. But what is proposed as part of 9C on this agenda is by far the most expensive, not just in terms of getting access down that route, which is basically parallel to the path that has been closed, but not just getting access, but also the maintenance of it as well on a regular basis would be quite substantial for the council when we have to consider some of the other paths that are now there. So officers are exploring options. I'm happy to share that detail, but I fear, and I can't speak for my ward colleagues, but when I came back on the email that was shared with me, it became quite obvious quite quickly that this was probably not the best approach to try to get this footpath to get that footpath opened and to explore other options instead. That said, it's up to you. But I'm very happy to share that email if it would be useful, but I'd like to save your officers' time and potentially Central Beds officers' time too. In terms of writing to the landowner, I can see why that would make perfect sense. But like I say, free to make that decision as you so wish.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fraser, much appreciated. With no other members of the public wishing to speak from online, no. So, in which case we'll move on to item 5, invited speaker. Now you'll see that Councillor Watkins isn't with us this evening. He has actually to send apologies earlier in the day. There's a sort of matter that he had to attend from a personal matter, so he's unable to attend this evening. But he's looking to try and book in a date with us at the next meeting. And it's a genuine reason. He did commit to attending a meeting on the 27th, but as we don't have a meeting planned for the 27th, it will be whenever the next meeting is and that's appropriate. So I appreciate it's a little bit disappointing because it would be good to hear from Councillor Watkins, but on this occasion we're not able to do that. So I'm going to move straight on to item 6, members' questions. Any members' questions? Go Councillor Alban first and Councillor Skilton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Will the council join me in congratulating Biggleswade Town player JJ Lacey? He was presented with the Golden Ball Award at the FA Cup final for his fantastic achievement, scoring the most goals in the FA Cup competition. And he beat Haaland from Man City in doing that. So I think he is deserving of congratulations. But also, this is a little late, but also deserving congratulations is the whole of the Waders team because they finished #1 in their division and they achieved automatic promotion to the Southern League Central Premier Division. So I think that Biggleswade can be proud of all of our 3 main teams, Biggleswade Town, United and FC, and I hope we can wish them all the very best for the season coming up.
I think absolutely right, Councillor Alban. I think I'm seeing nods around the table. I don't think there's any dissent to your proposal. Thank you for that. Very good. Anyone else wish to? Councillor Skilton, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you may have seen that the Biggleswade Pride Group have arranged a Pride weekend at Lola Bond Cafe, weekend of the 22nd of June. And I wanted to ask if we can raise the Pride flag on the other flagpole for that weekend to mark Pride, and June is obviously Pride month. We'd obviously have to buy a Pride flag, I'd imagine.
So it's a member's question. I think it's probably the right thing to do, rather than as it's not an item for consideration. I think members perhaps need to have some input into that. Whether I'm speaking from the chair. I perhaps shouldn't pass comment on the basis that it's not appropriate to do so. So I think members need to have some input into that. How do you think actually we deal with that one, Peter?
It's probably best dealt with outside of him onto an agenda or next agenda.
Given that it's an event, and you say the 27th of June, I think we'll need to take it away from here, but we'll consider the right approach on that. I don't. If we'd have known about it earlier, perhaps it could have been brought forward. Apologies that we haven't got an adequate response. Indeed. Okay. Councillor Woodhead.
Just in light of obviously the serious crimes crime specifically that's happened in the high street with the nationwide building site, I just wonder if it's now time to revisit our request either to the police, to sort of uniform police, to come and speak to council, because I know we've not had an officer come for a while, and or as well as to invite our new PCC for Bedfordshire at some stage. I realise he's only been in office 6 weeks, but if we can get a call out there, I think members would probably appreciate having that interaction. So possibly two-pronged, the actual sort of uniform police and then the PCC, if we can try and get those sort of lined up in the next, maybe after the summer or something like that, would be great.
Thanks for coming. I think, again, that's another one for us to take away, have a look at what the proposal, what the options are on that one. But yes, I mean, clearly it's a very disappointing to have that sort of thing happen, particularly at 5:15 on a weekend day that's unexpected. So Peter, go ahead.
Can I confirm that we've already reached out? So we're awaiting confirmation. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? No? Okay, so I'm going to move then straight on to minutes and recommendations of meetings. So the first one, we've got 3 sets this time. So first one is the minutes of the Town Council meeting on the 21st of May. So we were on page 10 of the pack. So for accuracy first, please. Page 10. Page 11, Councillor Strawn.
Yes, I'm down as having declared a pecuniary interest at the very top of the page. It was actually, they were non-pecuniary interests. So could that be moved into the correct section?
Absolutely.
Please?
Yeah, we've got that. Thank you. We're on next on page 12. Page 13, Councillor Russell.
The planning matters update. In exempt, are we going to be able to discuss this when we get into exempt?
I think we should. Yeah, there's no reason why not. So that's probably the right place to do it. So I'm presuming there's going to be matters arising following that. So yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Strawn and then Councillor Jones.
I believe I'm correct in saying that I left the meeting for the exempt item. So I think that should be noted in the minutes that between 14 and 15 that I left the meeting. It's not present.
Absolutely. Again, we'll get that amended. Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Just there's a spelling mistake in one of the paragraphs further down with names. So if we could just get that checked as well, that would be appreciated.
Okay. Anyone else on page 13? Unlucky for some. Okay, so subject to those amendments, then I'll sign those off in due course. Next one then is the annual statutory. Oh, hang on, no, it's not. It's the annual assembly. So again, so we're on page 15 for accuracy first, please. Page 16 of the pack, page 17. Sorry, Councillor Jones.
Sorry, just 1 to 3rd paragraph down on page 16. Just some grammar errors there in the paragraph, just a capital at the beginning of the sentence. Accuracy.
Okay. Oh yeah, I see. Yeah. Okay. Page 17. Page 18. Page 19. No. Okay. So Councillor Russell.
Can I just ask that somebody proofreads this, because there are several words missing or grammatical funnies, so they need to be proofread.
Thank you. So subject to those amendments, you're happy to sign those off. Okay. And the next one then is the annual statutory. Thank you. Lost my way again. So the annual statutory on page 21 for accuracy again. Page 22, page 23. Councillor Russell.
Item 7C, the Town Council did not appoint me to John Cotton. I'm a member of the trust, but not appointed by the Town Council.
Thank you. Yep. I'll get that corrected. Any others? So we're on 24 now. 25. Page 26. Page 27. page 28, page 29, page 30, and page 31. Councillor Strawn.
Again, I left the meeting for the purposes of the exempt part, and that should be recorded, please.
Thank you. I think we'll make sure that that is recorded for any other times that this is required. Councillor Strawn as well. Thank you. Councillor Russell.
Sorry, I'm having difficulty keeping up as well.
So am I going too quickly? Sorry about that.
This is item, where is it? It's the item on the land east of Langford Road.
So we're on
And it's
18B, yeah?
Yeah, 18B, thank you. The second bullet point down on page 30, CBC highlighted, no, not highlighted, they claim a 5-year land supply. I think it's important that it's a claim of the principal authority. And then the final bullet point says nearest employment opportunities and train station are in Biggleswade. That's fine. And it says, but access to these facilities is limited, which is an odd thing to say. And
So-
actually the point that was made was that access is via Hitchin Street, which is difficult to navigate at peak times, and the queuing would be increased. That was the point I was making about Hitchin Street, as opposed to access to the facilities is limited. It's not limited to the station, and it's not limited to the various firms in the town.
Okay, thank you. So I think, if you don't mind just revisiting that to make sure that the minutes actually are more accurate. I mean, it's a summary of it, but it's an accurate summary.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And we've got to pay. So subject to those amendments, again, happy for me to sign those off. Okay, so we're going to move back then to check we're progress or on matters arising again for the council meeting. So thank you. So again, on page 10 for matters arising, page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13, page. So that's it in relation to that. There's nothing on there. So next one then is matters arising in relation to the annual assembly.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. Should we, I don't think technically we're actually able to do the matters arising under the annual assembly because it's a meeting of the public, not of this town council.
You're
So-
absolutely right, Councillor Strawn. I knew there's always at least one faux pas, isn't there? So yes, you're quite right. So we'll move on. So there's no matters arising in relation to that. So we'll move on to the next one, which is the matters arising in relation to the annual statutory. So we're on page 21. Page 22. Page 23. Page 24. Page 25. 26. 27. 28. 29, 30, and 31. Okay, so no matters arising in relation to those. So we'll go back to the agenda. So we're going to go to item 9 then. So the first item, we've got members' motions. The first one is the business partnerships motion from Councillor Patel. Councillor Patel, would you like to speak?
Thank you. Okay, so this motion,
Did you declare a pecuniary interest in, can you propose a motion? You've got a,
non-pecuniary.
oh, sorry, non-pecuniary.
Yeah.
And, okay, so can you propose a motion?
Yeah.
And, okay.
You're happy with that, Peter? Yes.
Right. So at the heart of a good strategy, relocal business involves knowing which businesses have the potential to grow or prosper, where and who they are, what challenges and opportunities they face, the supply chain they are part of, and how the local council and other bodies can support them. The key to this is good business intelligence and contacts through an open dialogue and forum for this to happen. We wish to improve the relationship between business and the council, and also to better understand the constraints each work with to help gain better consensus
and initiatives that affect the town and its residents. In addition, to continue to improve our approach with working with business based in the town, even if owned by those outside the town. To maintain an open dialogue with the roundtable events, working closely on green and sustainable initiatives that maintain traditions and the historical makeup of Biggleswade. Where appropriate, identify funding to support the above. The main thing here is that the intention is not to duplicate other bodies or institutions already in place, but to bring them together. If this working group is not required, longer term, as others are able to take it on, then it will have served its purpose. There are lots of examples of what other councils have done, parish, town, and unitary authority. None seem consistent as each area has different demographics and challenges. So the recommendation that the town council considers two things. Number one, to have a regular agenda item at town council meetings to allow business to update us with their plans so we have a better understanding overall. The rationale to create better relationships and clear communication channels between all business and council. To hear about potential changes that benefit the town, whether green initiatives, sustainability, better services for residents, employment gains, and in tandem ensuring commercial enterprise can thrive. Number two, that we use our renewed relationships to establish if there is an appetite for a business board made up of representatives from business and other representatives that may add value. This could be LEPs, Beds Chamber of Commerce, ward and district councillors, or others that members may suggest. The business board to include a representative from Biggleswade Town Council until such time the board is established or a representative from us is not required. That's
Okay. So you have the motion in front of you, members. Do you wish to speak? Don't all speak at once. So any comments, please? Councillor Russell.
As far as the first part of the motion is concerned, a regular agenda item, I would think quarterly at the very most, if we had something like that, because at any time a business can come along and speak to us in public open session, in the session at the end of the meeting, about anything they want to. And the other thing I would say is that a few years ago we had a very successful Chamber of Trade, which has now become defunct. But that Chamber of Trade, there were two councillors who were appointed to be members of it at the statutory meeting in the same way that we appoint to others. And certainly for some time I was one of the town council's appointees, so used to go to the meetings. But I do think that the impetus needs to come from the businesses themselves. For us to support them. I'm a bit uncomfortable about us trying to lead the way on this.
Thank you. Councillor Strong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that officers have already been talking to some businesses generally with regard to how something might progress. And if I understand correctly, there's officers may be bringing a report to the council on how this might progress in the future. And if that should be the case, then it seems appropriate possibly to defer it until we can get a report from officers where we can consider all these things in one go.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Strong. Any other comments, Councillor Woodhead?
Thanks. Yeah, I think there's a lot of good stuff in this, and I think I'm very supportive of trying to build business links and the council. I've just, as Councillor Russell was saying, I think possibly if we were to go ahead with point one, a quarterly approach would probably be sensible. But equally, you know, TCM could be a good opportunity for that. There is a speaking slot available within the Town Centre Management Committee setup, so that could be something that that committee may wish to formalise, perhaps, question mark, but it's another avenue, because we do have those invited speaker slots, and there's, you know, there's perhaps ways of doing that. So, but I do think, as Councillor Russell said, that the Chamber of Trade is sort of, yeah, it's died a bit of a death, really. I have been in touch with Bedfordshire Chamber of Commerce to try and have a meeting with them in my capacity as chair of TCM. They haven't been overly receptive. So I don't know which way around of the telescope we need to look at this, whether it needs to come from the businesses or whether it needs to come from us directing the business. I'm not quite sure, but as I say, I'm happy for subject to TCM's approval to look at some of those things there instead or as well. So just sort of, it's probably not helping things in some ways, but it's another avenue that's available to us.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Agnew, and then Councillor Barrett.
Perhaps if, as Councillor Russell suggested, we have something on a quarterly basis, by which point we had perhaps several businesses identifying what is that they have appetite for. That would be probably the meaningful thing to reconsider again. Because at the moment, from the motion, it's not clear what kind of businesses would require what. Maybe a little bit more illustrative narrative and stats. Well, I'd like to see anyway.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Barrett, and then Councillor Patel.
Thank you. So I'd just point out something I was doing today, which is aspirations. Five. Saying establish as a start more to use this to establish your own implementation of business.
I think that's fair. I mean, we'll come back to that in a second. So, Councillor Patel.
So yes, just going back to the first one, I have reached out to quite a few businesses and there is an appetite for this, and I have explained to them the situation. So there are potentially some people from the local businesses that are keen to set something like this up. So that would be good. And just in relation to specifics, I mean, that would just vary from time to time, from business to business. For example, when we had the venue coming in to explain about their licensing, that was one sort of like, not issue, but one benefit of them coming in to explain everything to us. So another business may be new to the town, they may want further information, so maybe we could signpost them. But there is loads of, you know, various factors we could potentially help with, which currently I don't think is available, and this may well support that.
Okay, I think it was Councillor Russell, then Councillor Strong.
I think picking up on what Councillor Barrett has just said, that it's not just town centre shops. There used to be a group on Stratton Business Park that Central Bedfordshire Council used to bring together. So we had the Chamber of Trade, which was much more the town centre businesses, and we had this group that was on Stratton Business Park. Both of those groups then had representatives on the joint committee. So we had somebody who worked for Jordan's at the time who was on the joint committee, and we had the chairman of the Chamber of Trade, and then a bit later on the secretary of the Chamber of Trade instead. So I feel as if it's a bit back to the future, but it was much better when we had that business input.
Okay, Councillor Strong, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't believe the proposal has actually been put forward as a formal motion, but I subject to any comments the clerk has got to make, and I think we should hear from the clerk before we actually make a consideration. I would propose that we defer this item to a next meeting of the council so that the clerk can prepare a report on the practicalities and how it might be operated, so that we as a council can give fuller consideration to the implementation of this.
Okay, before I ask if anyone to say, can I let the clerk speak, and then anything you want to add, Peter, in there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy to produce a paper. One of the things that officers are working on in the background is the possibility of holding a business conference with external stakeholders sometime in September of this year. And we're trying to generate a program and paper connected to that. But obviously we're not quite yet ready to surface that report to all members, but we'll be shortly putting that opportunity forward, and then we can have a conversation about it.
Okay, Councillor Knight.
Thank you. So Councillor Barrett touched on it. So a few years back, we did have an objective and a member of staff who's no longer with the council who was tasked with building that database of town businesses. And I think, that is very much one of the first things we have to do. Because we can't invite people to a meeting if we don't know who they are, if we don't have their contacts, if we don't have their details. So I'm very disappointed that still hasn't happened. To my mind, we need to be inclusive. We need a database of all of the businesses in town and the contact addresses, and then we can communicate with businesses. We can understand what their needs are. We can invite them to be speakers. But we can't do any of that until we know who we're talking to. We can't just talk to the people that we know, because even all of us, we don't know them all. So I think we really need to deliver on that commitment that goes back a couple of years. Unfortunately, it's somehow been sort of lost from the corporate memory, but we need to get back to basics. We should, as a town council, have a database of all of the businesses operating within this community.
Thank you. Go on, Peter.
I don't know whether my comments were lost in translation. I didn't say it didn't exist. It's the reverse. Did you want to explain?
Thanks. Just briefly, if I may. So it's true to say that the last couple of years it has gone relatively quiet, essentially, on building a database, but we have been building one. And most recently, actually, in reaching out to various stakeholders for this potential conference or at least event that may or may not be happening in September of this year, once the reports come through, we have been producing a database on various different sheets, including both out of town businesses, in town businesses, and kind of various different classifications. We're happy to share that in some format. I mean, possibly SharePoint is easiest, I've got to say. But anyway, I'm happy to obviously share that with members and see how accurate it is, and etc. It's a constantly evolving feast anyway. But it is, I'd say it's in a pretty good state for now.
If I could just respond, I guess the important thing is the coverage. What coverage of the businesses do you estimate we currently have? Is it 50%, 30%?
So you mean as a share of the total business in town? That proportion, it's a good amount. I mean, it covers the full town centre and then goes wider, but it's difficult to say. Essentially,
I think it'd be useful for members to have an understanding of that. So go on, Peter, and then
just to complement what Corinne has been saying, I think we've been holding off slightly because we wanted to put all the packages together, and we were also waiting for CBC because of PERDA to link into this debate. So I think as soon as that gives us the freedom to have that conversation, we can share all of the detail with members.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jones and Councillor Barrett.
Thank you. If we can go back to the motion itself and Councillor Patel, unless I've misunderstood, what's on my mind is that it's actually asking about the intention, not the doing right now. So I'm not sure why would we defer it when it feels like around the table there is agreement. So the first point says to have a regular agenda item at town council meetings to allow businesses to update us with their plans. It sounds like the consensus is for us to do that quarterly, and then it just lists what the intention is, but there's nothing in there about the ways of working behind it. So for me, when we go to a vote, I'm not sure why we would defer that. It feels like in spirit of the motion, there's a consensus around the table. For the second point, again, we've agreed provisionally and depending upon vote, but it sounds like there's an appetite to support that we do use our renewed relationships to, that we go out to search if there is an appetite for business boards made up of representatives from the town. So we're not saying that Councillor Patel hasn't put forward and said, I've got a list of people, here we go. He's asking for us to agree that that is a concept we're going to go with. So again, I understand what other councillors are saying about the actual implementation coming later. But for now, for me, this is all about the intention behind it. Happy to be corrected though. Just trying not to have a pre-meeting for a meeting for a meeting and extending everybody's workloads any more than they need to be in today's day.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Barrett.
Effectively, I was going to say the same thing, but I was going to use the words that I think we're agreeing that we're going to be proactive in this and we're not going to be reactive to this going forward. And in essence, that's I think, stand to be corrected, but I think it implies that that's what we're trying to achieve and gain agreement on this evening in point one at least.
Okay, Councillor Albone, then Councillor Russell, and then we'll conclude, I think.
Yeah, Councillor Woodhead suggested that TCM might be a good, a better sort of committee to consider this than the full council. I think that's probably the right way to go.
That's exactly what I was going to say, rather than in the first motion, rather than council.
So I have a proposal from Councillor Strawn to defer, which isn't currently seconded. Is that proposal seconded? No, so it's not seconded, Councillor Strong. So do I have any other proposals that anyone wishes to put forward? Go on, Councillor Patel.
So to put it over to TCM, so would that need to be a proposal? But I propose to have it transferred over to TCM for the next meeting or to be considered. How would we go about having it?
Okay, so what you're saying is your proposal is that this matter is dealt with via the TCM, so the quarterly a quarterly meeting at the TCM meeting. Given that the TCM is quarterly, so we're saying it's an agenda item on every TCM meeting. What I would say as well, so just perhaps an addition to that, is that I think it would be useful to have some sort of indication of if there are perhaps in the background some indication of businesses that might be interested to attend. 'Cause at the moment, with respect, Councillor Patel, it's anecdotal. You're saying there are members. I think it might be useful for us to have some sort of indication of who is actually interested in joining a group. So when we come to the TCM meeting, and I at the moment I'm not sure when the date is. It is on this 23rd of July, isn't it? It's on this agenda. I think it's the 23rd. In the event that we might change it, or 16th.
I'm very much hoping it's on the 23rd of July.
So, given that the next meeting is sometime in July, either the 16th or the 23rd, does that give us enough time for it to be an agenda item at that point, or do we push it back to another one? So we'll perhaps park it there and for the chair of TCM to consider the way forward on that. But in the meantime, it's an agenda item on TCM, and we essentially support the principle. Go on, Councillor Russell.
Well, you're dealing with the first item there. Yep. The second item, I mean, I didn't know anything about a business conference, but that seems to me to be the launch pad. If we have a successful business conference, we'll start to see what the appetite is for some resurrection of the Chamber of Trade under whatever title, and that would be the impetus to take it forward. So I think we wait to see what paper the officers come forward with about the business conference instead of your item 2, because I think it will take us in the same direction, Councillor Patel.
So, Funda, good luck of trying to work out what we actually agreed there. But in principle, I think we haven't voted. No, FOPAR number 2. So, all those in favour. So, Councillor Jones, go on.
No, I was just going to offer to summarise. That's all. But if everyone's clear,
please do summarise. So,
So, I think if Councillor Patel is in agreement that the motion would be to have a regular attender at the TCM quarterly, and then that we agree collectively that we use our renewed relationships, and using Councillor Russell's good point of using the conference as the starting point, the springboard, but the essence of that everybody wants to do this is that. Does that sound?
It sounds okay at the moment. I've got Councillor Strawn indicating.
I think it was to have the regular agenda item at TCM, not a regular attender at TCM.
Yeah.
That might be included, but it's the agenda item rather than the attender.
Yep. So to have a seconder for that approach, as I said, a number of seconders. So all those in favour then please show. Okay, well done. That's carried. Thank you very much. Councillor Barrett.
Just make one final comment.
Go on.
We did a lot of work recently on the local plan where we listed all the different businesses and their addresses and who they were and things like that. If it hasn't already been done, could we include that information that was put together then and cross-reference it with your existing database?
Excellent. Good idea. Okay, so Councillor Strawn, you're indicating?
Yeah, because we've got a second item. Have we passed that over because it's been suggested that we actually wait for the report?
I think we've dealt with both as part of that same item, yeah. So I'm going to move on to the next item then. So again, it's a motion from Councillor Skilton in relation to the Big Theatre. Councillor Skilton.
Thank you. So I'll sort of go through the motion in a second, but basically the Big Theatre seems to be the first theatre to open in the UK in the last 11 years. I think that's a fantastic thing. Biggleswade is becoming quite a cultural hub in this region and nationally, and we're getting some, good good acts come into the big theatre. So basically my motion is that Biggleswade Town Council formally recognise and celebrate the opening of the big theatre, which I believe is the first newly created theatre to open in the UK in 11 years. In light of this significant cultural milestone, the council resolves to use the big theatre in town marketing efforts, that's incorporate the big theatre into our marketing materials to highlight the cultural offerings of Biggleswade, support the theatre through social media, share and promote the big theatre social media posts via the official Biggleswade Town Council Facebook page to increase their visibility and support their initiatives, collaborate for mutual benefit, offer to engage in collaborative efforts with the big theatre to enhance our town centre event offerings, thereby enriching the cultural landscape of Biggleswade and fostering community engagement. And I understand there is already some appetite for collaboration with what happened during the D-Day commemorations.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Skilton. Okay, members, comments, please. Councillor Woodhead.
Thanks. Yeah, just a couple of comments really. I mean, I think the first bit of the sort of the motion that about recognising it's in the first theatre in 11 years and everything is absolutely right, and you know we should sort of recognise that in some way. I just think the other points I just wanted to make out is that Biggleswade Town Council already has been supporting big theatre. We've given a number of grants over a period of time. Moral support, all sorts of other type of support anyway, so that's already ongoing. So whether we need to formalise that, I question, because we already kind of are doing some of that. The second thing is we do have some other businesses promoted in the broadest sense on our website, not on the Facebook page, on our website, Shortmead House, Jordan's Mill, all of which reside in the Biggleswade parish. So maybe we should add the big theatre. I suspect that the website needs redoing, and that could be added to that. So I think it's probably a website issue as well. I guess my only question is, in terms of supporting things via social media, is that do we do that exclusively for them, or we need to do that for lots of other organisations? And I worry about sort of the amount of channels and all the rest of it going out. That's all. Which is not to say we're not supportive of things, because I think we are, but it's just sort of whether we want to create more noise or not. So I think the bit about the website we can definitely do easily, and we should support that. But I think the social media stuff is a bit trickier, because do we then do that for everything Jordan's Mill does, or Flutter's Bingo, or whatever? And I think we start getting in a difficult position. But happy for this to discuss that point. But I think the other bits we can do quite easily.
Can we go to Councillor Knight, then Councillor Jones?
Thank you. So I think Councillor Woodhead's made some good points. So the big theatre is a great asset for our town. I've spoken in favour of awarding grants to the big theatre, and just this week I bought a ticket for an event next week. But I don't think we can favour any individual establishment. And as a town council, we need to promote the town as a whole and the town centre as a whole. The theatre is a community interest company. It's operating in a competitive market, and there are lots of other venues, some of which have been here for a long time, some of which are quite new, that are competing, and it's not for the town council to distort that market. The big theatre is really good at marketing as well. In this short period of time, it's got more followers than the town council has on its social media. So I don't think they're bad at marketing. So I think we should do what we can to bring people into Biggleswade, and our audience is primarily the residents of Biggleswade. I think we need to look at how we make Biggleswade a destination and really double down on that, and certainly showcasing the cultural and the leisure facilities as a whole, and occasionally that means featuring different businesses, absolutely fine with. But we've got to bear in mind, I think, that the big theatre sits alongside Flutters, the Pheasant, the Venue, the Rose, the Weatherly Centre, Jordan's, as you say, and many of those venues host live entertainment and shows. So yeah, let's support the town as a whole, I would argue, in a very neutral way. Let's think about involving all of the businesses in the town that can contribute to the events that we run, like the Christmas light switch on. And I've always been a big proponent of doing that, but I don't think we should favour any one establishment.
Thank you, Councillor Knight. So I've got Councillor Jones next, then Councillor Russell.
Thank you. I just echo the same. I'm not sure that your comparison of them getting more social media Reach than the town council is a fair comparison. They have a much more exciting subject matter, I think.
Really?
than ours, to be fair. I know. No, I agree. I think definitely it's a great, we should definitely recognise and celebrate them. But, you know, straight away when I read it, I thought of Bats, for example, Castle Comedy. There are plenty of youth performing arts groups all over the town centre. How do you show preference from one over another? So yeah, I think that's probably where I am. So I think the other councillors have probably put it quite much more eloquently than I could.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Russell, then Councillor Strawn.
2 points from me. I think it's right that we obviously feature the Big Theatre on our website. And I would say that with any of these venues, such as Jordan's, we then have a link to their website as a way of promoting it. We shouldn't be wasting time, if I can put it like that, at trying to keep up with everything that's going on in the town. So I think if we're mentioning that, it could be then with a link to their website. And the bit about collaboration for mutual benefit, yes, if we can, but I keep saying this about the town council. We have to think about the capacity of our staff and what does collaborate to mutual benefit mean in a lot of these cases, because we haven't got the capacity to, I was going to say take over some of the basic organisation of these events, which we've been expected to do in the past. We just don't have that capacity. There's also a financial impact, because if we're asking some of our staff to do a lot of work outside of normal hours, then they would be expecting to be paid overtime, quite rightly. So there's a financial impact if we do too much as well.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Russell. Councillor Strawn, then Councillor Barrett.
Thank you. I think Councillor Knight made some very good points. We can't do marketing for all the organisations in the town. If we do it for one, we've got to do it for all, and that would be wrong. I think also it'd be useful actually if we knew what the Big Theatre wanted us to do anything to support them in that respect. But maybe the opportunity to find out more, and that to cover all organisations doing events, would be the meeting that is being suggested for the business development that might take place in September. If we invite the Big Theatre and other businesses along to that like that, then I think we're doing our bit in that respect. So I think the idea of us committing staff to doing Facebook is impractical, if nothing else, because we haven't got the time to do that. If we do it for one, we've got to do it for everybody.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Barrett, then I think I'm going to go Councillor Gilcher and then Councillor Skilton, and then you can conclude and then we'll go to a vote. Okay. So Councillor Barrett.
I think we sort of skipped one bit here and we've moved into the sort of social media side of it. The first part of this, I think, is about celebrating that this is a theatre that has opened and hasn't happened somewhere else. And I absolutely support that we should be supporting that. And I think we should be having a motion that we vote on that and agree that that's something we should be recognising on our website or anywhere else. The second part of it, which is the supporting the social media, I have to agree with colleagues that perhaps we shouldn't be doing that for everybody in that way. And the business motion that was potentially put forward earlier on could be a good mechanism for that to continue to happen. And I'm sorry, but I have been reading this document through and through, but in our aspirations, this is what it actually says. It says, work collaboratively to develop the arts, culture and tourism strategy, which recognises the unique heritage and culture of the town and publicise events through an annual calendar. So in a way, we should be doing some of the motion anyway. So, but I'm not sure we should be doing it for everybody through social media on our websites and things like that. So I agree with colleagues in that sense. So could we do the first part first and then agree whether we should be doing it?
I think you're right. I think, to be fair, I think Councillor Woodhead did actually mention it comes up. So let's go. Councillor Gilcher, do you wish to comment? Or are you just raising your hand inadvertently? Okay, thank you. In which case, we'll move on. Councillor Skilton, did you want to summarise and then we'll...
Yeah, thank you. And thank you everyone for your comments. I think there are some definitely some good points raised there around effort involved for town council staff and also favouring businesses. I will just kind of come back on the point that where the Councillor Knight made about the Big Theatre and competing with other businesses. I think actually it probably enhances the offering of the town and supports more businesses than it competes with. I mean, I know personally, and other people probably wouldn't just go to the theatre, they'd go for a drink somewhere else beforehand and probably something to eat. And we obviously have some very good eateries very close to the big theatre. So perhaps then if I can, I guess adding it to the website is, I think, a great idea, and I would be supportive of that as an amendment. I don't know what the procedural norm for that is, but I'd be happy for the social media thing to be removed, and we can deal with the collaboration in the stuff that's been dealt with by the previous motion. So perhaps the just the first bit then, and to add the big theatre to our website.
Okay, so if we make that as a formal proposal, then do I have a second of that proposal? Okay, that's Councillor Russell. All those in favour, then please show. Okay, good. Thank you. Well done. Thank you. Then we'll move on to the next item, which is where are we? 9C, Shortmead House potential permissive path.
It's me again.
Councillor Skilton.
So I had actually planned. So some information came to light to me today, which I was told was extremely confidential, but it can't be that confidential as Councillor Page has brought it up in the public open session. So I had planned to make a slightly different amended motion, but I sort of, one point that Councillor Page mentioned was the expensive option of making it, adding a surface or whatever, and I think I've just sort of said in that, well, I'll come to the motion, but I don't think we can sort of start putting a price on accessibility to our countryside, and it'd be my aspiration that every public right of way in and out of Biggleswade is fully accessible, and that would, that, and I think that should be an aspiration for everyone. So yeah, I mean, this is the motion, and I think I'll bring it unamended. Following the closure of the permissive path linking the common to the right-of-way at Shortmead House, this council resolves to take the following actions. Write to the landowner of Shortmead House requesting the reopening of the permissive path as a gesture of goodwill to the community. Write to Central Bedfordshire Council requesting the following actions. Ensure that the alternative legal right-of-way is maintained and remains usable. Improve the standard of the alternative right-of-way with appropriate surfacing. And I will just say that if the permissive path is opened, those other two may not need to be done.
Okay, thank you very much. So comments, I've got Councillor Jones first, then Councillor Russell.
Thank you. I have a question for the clerk before my comment. Did we ever get a reply to the email that we sent with the photos of when I went down there to show the path, the other side of the hedge, how that was overgrown and that's supposed to be maintained?
Thanks. Just briefly say yes. We had a response saying thank you. They were looking at it. That was it.
And that was it. Okay. So then I would like to ask Councillor Skilton to consider amending the proposal based on what our ward councillor has informed us with, so that along the lines of that we would contact Central Beds, but actually we would like a seat at the table, so to speak. We'd like to be informed. We'd like to have our emails sent over and updated. We'd like to be included in the conversation, because based upon what we're hearing from our ward councillor, I'd like whatever contact that happens with CBC to actually be impactful and actually to matter. And I worry that with this request, with this motion, based upon the information that's come to light this evening, that might not give us the response we were looking for, because my original question was going to be, could you amend it to push for the path that's there to be sorted out effectively, so that that can be used, because it's literally just around the other side of the hedge, which is no big deal. But actually, I think it's more important now that we're included and we're responded to in a timely manner, and that our concerns are valid ones and we're heard. So, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Woodhead, thank you. Councillor Jones. Oh, sorry, I had Councillor Russell. I beg your pardon.
Just a couple of quick points. Just one procedural point. Would have been nice to have had a map with this motion, because I mean, I go up there quite a bit, but I'm still not quite clear where all the paths are and everything like that.
I had planned to bring a map and distribute it, but given the information I was given before this meeting, I thought that we would be having a completely almost withdrawn motion. So
no, fair, no, that's okay, but you were just visualising it, that's all. And then the first bit about writing to the landowner, I personally don't have a problem with that. If you know, that's it's worth a try, basically. But the other bit, sorry, in terms of the bullet points, clearly there are, as Councillor Fade just suggested, there are a range of alternatives, and I think it's probably difficult to vote on that because there obviously are a number of different alternatives. So I'm you know, I don't know where we go with that, but probably inclined to agree with Councillor Jones. But so anyway, but yeah, so I think the first bit is fine. Second bit, obviously there's a range of alternatives which we need to get to the bottom of.
Okay, Councillor Russell.
Two things. First of all, the first part of it about writing to the landowner. I think that is the way that's written is the wrong way. I think it's assuming that there is no problem with that footpath being reopened. And I know that there have been problems with that footpath being used. So I think we should be writing to the landowner, asking if there are any issues or whether it is possible for the footpath to be reopened, to recognise that there may be issues as to why that was closed. And given everything that we're hearing tonight, I think we should be writing to Central Bedfordshire, asking them to formally tell the Town Council exactly what the situation is with that land at Shortmead and the various footpaths, what the legal situation is and where they are up to with negotiations and what the issues might be. Because if they're known by the ward councillors, I don't see why this council shouldn't know them. So I would ask that Councillor Skilton changes that second part to just sort of ask Central Beds for a full update on the situation. And with the first part, to just put in something about to ask if there are any issues or whether that permissive path could be reopened.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Alvo.
I absolutely agree with what we just heard from Councillor Russell. It would be great to get our views, as Councillor Jones pointed out, fed directly into what's happening at the moment, the consideration that's being taken at the moment. I thought the sentiment of the council here was quite clear from previous meetings. We were in favour of opening that footpath, and I still believe that's the right option. That's the best path. The path that's on the common is problematic. It gets overgrown. It gets muddy. That there are issues with livestock there that can get in the way. Yeah, so I still believe the sentiment of this council is that we would like that to be opened. So any way that we can do that would be great. But it'd be great if our views were properly heard at CBC.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Barrett.
And just on that point, I think I actually wouldn't write to the landowner at all. I think we should be writing just to CBC about all of this, and that should be part of our letter to them, is that we would like to write to the landowner, but we'd be expecting them to do that. I think we should write one letter to CBC about all of our issues and concerns and the sentiment of the council and do it that way. I don't think we should sort of poke the bear at this stage. I think we should be writing to CBC and getting them to do it on our behalf.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor Skilton.
Hi, thank you all for your comments. There's some good points have been made. So I don't have a problem with amending the second part to ask CBC to resolve this matter to a satisfactory resolution as quickly as possible, while also engaging Town Council in that process. I guess if we wrote to the landowner and he said no, then it would probably give us, I'd hope he'd give us the reasons why we're saying no, not just a blunt no. So from that point of view, and just to Councillor Barrett's point, I've been sent quite a lot of email correspondence between members of the public and CBC on this matter, and I got the impression that CBC were not doing, they weren't communicating effectively with residents, which is why I've brought this motion, because some of the responses were frankly inadequate that came back. And so I think CBC do need to kind of, up their game on this.
Okay, so I think we'll conclude. So what I'm looking for then is a formal proposal that we can vote on. The impression of, I'm not going to try and garble it. Someone else put the proposal forward. Go on, Councillor Russell.
I think that the best suggestion is what Councillor Barrett put forward, that we write to Central Beds in the first instance and ask them to explain exactly what the situation is legally, what the options are going forward, and what they intend to do next. Because I think we're all agreed that we should know what's going on with that, because it is something that's important to residents.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that? Okay. All those in, go on, Councillor Skilton, you wanted to speak?
Sorry, so that is to write, so just to clarify, just for my, so it's a right to CBC to, and also can we add into that they resolve this in a satisfactory way in a timely fashion or something like that, you know?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, happy with that. So that was seconded, I think, someone. Yeah, so all those in favour then please show. Okay, that's everybody. Well done. Thank you. Right. We'll move on to we're 9D. So Peter, I think I'm going to pass that over to you.
Ernest, would you like to introduce the subject?
Thank you. So I believe we all have copy of this report. I did send it electronically, and I've also put a copy on each desk. So the main background is for members are invited to select electricity provider. Members are to know that the limitations on this, these are spot price quotation, so there is a 24-hour limitation on it. So please, the decision is required tonight. So officers have reached out to various brokers and electricity providers, and also the brokers do conduct a due diligence before they accept the energy companies on their database. So the due diligence has already been completed by the brokers. So there are three main codes that came out. It's more than three, but I selected the three best ones, and the best quotation out of all of them is from Smartest Energies, making a recommendation for us to go for a 2-year quote inconsistent with the gas contract which was selected last month, and also going forward if this recommendation goes through, officers are proposing that in future we will combine the gas and the electricity together, so that we start the process sometime in May and bring it to the statutory general annual meeting. I think that's all. Any questions, please?
Okay, so members' comments or questions? Councillor Barrett?
Just one comment. I did have a quick chat with Ernest about this. It's just for information, really, is that what the budget we already have for electricity in 24-25, I think, was in the region of 21,000 or something like that, just to get an indication what we've got in the funds at the moment. So although we're talking about making savings over last year, we're actually potentially going to be spending more than you propose.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Knight.
Thank you very much for the report. Yes, so Smartest Energy are clearly the cheapest. The choice really seems to be around a 1-year deal that costs £25,606 for a year, if we think the energy prices are going to fall in the next year. And if we think prices are likely to go up, we might want to go for the 2-year deal that is more expensive, £26,344 per year. And that's where I'm a bit stuck. I wonder, does that consultant have any guidance as to whether energy prices, I know it's a crystal ball, are likely to go up or go down over the next 12 months?
Thank you very much. Speaking to, if you speak to them, all of them, they can't tell, because that's right, yeah, unfortunately.
So then, given it's a bit of a tossing the coin over 1 year versus 2 years, I'm going to gamble and say perhaps the cost will go down, and either way, the 2-year deal is more expensive. So I think I'd like to propose we go for the 1-year deal of 25,600.
Okay, I'll note your proposal, Councillor Knight. I'm going to go to Councillor Woodhead.
Thanks. I know we've been trying to get sort of best value out of the electricity and gas and so on. I'm quite horrified by the figures associated with Stratton Fields changing rooms, which seem to be using more electricity than the old courthouse. Yeah, but even then the cost is still higher. So the fact is it's still a higher electricity bill for Stratton changing rooms than it is for the old courthouse. Possibly that might be an area we want to look at some savings as well. And we know we're looking at changing providers, but that's something I think we should look at. Otherwise, my other point I was going to make is, yeah, it is a little bit stick your finger in the air in terms of whether energy prices will go down. But you know, having the security of 2 years is beneficial, but for £1,000. But you know, obviously the smartest energy is cheaper. But yeah, my main concern is having spotted those figures around Stratton. So I'd be interested in a response to that.
Okay, Peter, do you want to go ahead on that?
Yeah, okay. This is a slightly sensitive issue, so in part I might deal with it under exempt, but suffice to say that that's also been picked up by officers, and that we are reaching out to the organisations that use that to highlight to them, to clarify matters as we go forward, and to ensure that that demand doesn't continue into the new year. So we'll ensure that that level of demand shrinks significantly. Yeah.
Councillor Alban?
Yeah, I think this was raised last time we looked at the figures, that was thing to be, that stick out as an issue. So yeah, I think we definitely need to get that looked into. As far as 2 year versus 1 year, I'm not sure that we should take a gamble on this. In Councillor Knight's words, I think sticking to a 2 year term, we do have some stability there. We can budget. We can't know what's going to happen. We've seen what's happened to energy prices in the past. The global situation can blow up at any time. That's what happened before. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? So I think perhaps stability is better than gambling.
Okay, I'm going to go to Peter then. Peter.
So I just wanted to be absolutely clear in regard to what I just said. So we understand the reason for the spike. We're ensuring that it doesn't happen again. Yeah. And I guess it's for members to determine which direction of travel they would want to go. I think there are some benefits to a 2 year in the sense that if we want to try and combine our utilities into one and try and maximize potential savings going forward, at least the timeframes then catch up and we're able to go to the market. But as we say, it is a crystal ball. Who knows what's going to happen?
Okay, Councillor Strawn.
Yes, just looking at the usage, I'm surprised at the Drove Road Cemetery usage as well. So I think that is incredibly high for what it doesn't make sense to me just looking at it. And obviously we've only just had an opportunity to see these figures. So I hope officers will be looking at all the usages there. And just further, is there a different price per unit for the second year if we go on the 2 year basis, or is the unit price set? It's just set at a higher base for usage.
Yeah, there is a slight difference, but not much difference.
But that's the reason it's higher. For the 2 year one, they charge us more.
Yes, please.
Per unit.
Okay, I'm going to Councillor Jones, and then we'll take it to a vote shortly.
Just when you're considering in the vote about a gamble versus stability, one thing that's on my mind is the amount of man hours that goes into each year, the work that goes into finding it might offset the difference ever so slightly when we go to look. So that I think that's something that should be on our minds as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I have a proposal of Councillor Knight for 1 year with smartest energy. Do I have a seconder for that proposal, please? Doesn't look like it. So do I have any other proposals then coming forward? So Councillor Alban, go on, Councillor Alban was first.
I propose the 2 year smartest energy.
Do I have a seconder for the 2 year? So that's okay. All those in favour, please show. There you go. That is unanimous. Okay, that's helpful. Good. Okay. So we're moving on to where in 9E, which is the BRCC Green Wheel contribution. To members to consider the report from the Head of Finance and Deputy RFO. And it's Peter, you introducing?
If that's okay, yeah.
Yep.
Just to clarify, there's been a historical contribution towards the Green Wheel of £2,000 from the council. That's been going on for a number of years now. And we, as officers, felt it important that we bring this to members' attention and to identify this and seek some direction connected to it. In the past, that sum of money has been dealt with outside of any grants process, but has been charged to the grants budget based on some logic associated at the time. However, we wanted to bring it to members' attention to try and get some direction about how we might deal with this going forward. And there's two options effectively down on the table here. Number one might be that we seek to generate a separate account code and that we source this outside of the grant process. And number two is that we would encourage our colleagues at BRCC to be involved in that grant application process and for members then to determine based on the evidence provided as to whether or not they would be in support of such application.
Okay, thank you, Peter. So comments, we've got Councillor Skilton.
Have we spoken to BRCC about this?
The answer is yes. The email is for, because it's been reoccurring every year. The email, and the email is whether councillors have already approved it or not.
Right.
So
okay.
That's why.
Because I mean, BRCC. I'm very supportive of BRCC. They do some absolutely fantastic work around here, and they keep the Green Wheel going. They publicise it, and they help to maintain it through volunteers and through their staff, and work really closely with CBC right of way officers. I think asking them to apply for a grant would be, quite a lot for them to do. They spend a lot of time applying for grants, and I know their officers are stretched, especially their Green Wheel officer, who the burden of this would fall to. So I would not be supportive of the recommendation of asking them to apply for a grant. I think we should fund this and go with option one.
Okay. Councillor Russell, Councillor Strawn, Councillor Woodhead.
I second what Councillor Skelton has just said. I think this should be a separate item, and we should see that quite clearly in the budget when we look at how much we're actually allocating for grants, because I don't think this should come out of the grants pot. So I'd second what Councillor Skelton's just said.
Okay, Councillor Strawn.
Having noted the observations just made, I still think we should find out, have BRCC should still let us know what they're intending to spend the money on, so that it's not an automatic rubber stamp that they'll get 2,000 every year regardless. I think, yes, I fully support what's going on, but I think equally it'd be wrong for us just to hand over 2,000 without us knowing what it's actually going to be used for. If they say that's what their projects are, all right with that, not necessarily go through the grant process, but they should at least be writing in saying, could we have 2,000 this year? And again, in future the years, they may want more, they may want less.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Woodhead. Councillor Thomas, did you indicate?
Yeah, I think we've been supporting this for quite a while, and they've been doing good work as far as I can tell. And I think we should support it, and it says on the piece of paper what it's for. So I can't see why we're even asking the question. But I think we're just also asking them to jump through some hoops they don't need to do. As Councillor Skilton's mentioned, that they are busy and they have supported things in Biggleswade that I know have happened as well. So I think we get more back from them than we actually give.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Albo.
Yeah, so if we can do this, and I support, I think we should. So in the recommendation, it talks about a growth allocation in the community agent grant. Now, I think we'd be better with a separate heading, which was kind of floated, I think. So, can we change that to away from community agent grant to a heading of its own?
So okay. So just to confirm process. So, anyone else wish to speak? I think you wanted to speak again, Councillor Skilton. Are you
We'll just quickly mention that I understand that the grants that people can apply for can't be used for revenue. And I think that perhaps BRCC might need to use that £2,000 for revenue points.
Okay. So we have a proposal that option one is essentially as laid out, seconded by Councillor Russell. So almost a status quo, but with a particular separate line in the charity budget, so that it's clear to members what it's for. There's a suggestion that we might want to know what it's for, but that's not part of the proposal. So we'll just the proposal as laid out. All those in favour, please show. Okay, that's unanimous again. Well done, thank you. We will move on to the next item. So this is a change of the upcoming TCM meeting. It's very straightforward for us members to consider approving changing the date of the next TCM meeting to the 16th of July to the reserved date on the 23rd. I guess it's a formal proposal from Councillor Woodhead. Do I have a second of that proposal, Councillor North? Anyone else wish to comment? Just as a matter of procedure, and Peter, perhaps you can clarify for members here that is it a requirement within our standing orders that a change of meeting date comes to council?
My understanding is yes.
Okay, perhaps I think what would be helpful to clarify that, but for this particular meeting, and we can establish whether or not there is a requirement to come to a meeting. And my personal view is that if it's at the committee chairman feels that the date can be changed, subject to any other matters, but we want to establish whether it's in the standing orders or not. If it is, we need to review it. If it's not, then perhaps we can review how we deal with these matters. So, but the proposal and seconded, all those in favour of the date change, please show. Thank you. That's unanimous. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item then, Treasury Management Policy Report. And it's over to you again, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the main background is in accordance with the Local Government Act 2003, the council is required to produce or review annual investment strategy at least once a year, and officers are aware of Local Government Act 2003 under section 15 that the main priorities should be security, liquidity, and yield in order. So at the end of last financial year, the council did have almost about 444,875 surplus in terms of general reserves and growing capital funds in the bank. So it is prudent for the council for us to have a strategy in investing these funds in order to generate the maximum interest. The council is generating some interest at the moment, but this policy is to enhance what we are generating in order to increase it further. And also I've had a consultation with the chairman of the Finance and General Purposes and the deputy chair of Finance and General Purposes to include, if we turn to page 40, please, under the approval and mechanism, the last sentence, it says the town clerk and the head of finance in consultation with the chairman of Finance and General Purposes. So not just the chairman of Finance and General Purposes, but the chair and the deputy. We will evaluate the surplus funds available at any given time, so that it doesn't have to come to the council all the time. So the recommendation would be for members to really consider the treasury management policy and approve if possible. Do you want to add something, please?
Yeah, I mean, cutting to the chase on this, I mean, I think it's a really helpful document that Ernest has produced. the fact that we've now got a policy to review is extremely helpful. The simple element here is that we're trying to maximise the level of interest that we have on our funds on account, and we should do that as cleverly as we possibly can. And I know in conversations with the chair and deputy chair of FGP, they support this process. This is what it's trying to encourage. We're trying to be as fluid and as nimble as we possibly can to gain as maximum interest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Strong.
Yes, I'd like to propose a policy with the addition of the Vice Chairman of Finance in terms of the consultation. I think it's sensible from a practical point of view. We can't come to council every time we want to move monies around because circumstances may dictate. So we've got a policy here. I think it just makes it it's a practical way forward.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to Councillor Alban first before we take second it.
Yeah, I just wonder if something should be included in there that whatever action takes place should be reported to FGP or potentially the council if necessary due to timescales.
You happy to add that in, Councillor Strong? Yeah. Okay. Any other comments, Councillor Russell?
I'm not quite understanding why we're not sticking with CCLA if the interest rate is higher, if we're trying to maximise yield. Because in my experience, and I do deal with CCLA with wearing other hats, it's very easy to move money in and out, and they are very helpful, unlike some of the high street banks.
Okay, perhaps I will pass that over to the officers to answer the question.
Thank you. We do have some funds in CCLA at the moment. We have almost 351,000, and so this policy is to give our officers and the chair and the deputy chair of finance and general purposes to increase the funds if we have to, so that there is option to increase the funds in CCLA or to use the investment products within the Unity Trust Bank. But we will always prioritize, because there is yield in there, we always prioritize the investment which will bring maximum interest for the council.
Okay. Want to say anything? Or you have
just one final comment, really. I think the key here is being nimble, effectively, and as much as CCLA are an organisation that you can maximise levels of interest, and they're a good organisation from that perspective, there are some frustrations sometimes in regard to speed of activity, and this just gives us the opportunity of going as fast as we possibly can on the occasions we need to do that, and it's going to be reported to council anyway. So, yeah.
Okay. So, any other comments before we go? So I've got a proposal from Councillor Strong that it's a proposal as laid out with the additional amendment to that any details reported to council. Do I have a second of that proposal, please? Okay. All those in favour then please show. Any against? Okay. Any abstentions, please? Okay, so that's carried. Thank you. Councillor Russell.
Ask for my vote against to be recorded, please.
You can.
I feel strongly about that.
Okay. So that's going to be in the minutes, Councillor Russell. Thank you. So I'm going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the internal audit on the right page. So we are, Peter, is that introduced?
Yep. That's okay. Yeah. So firstly, as members will be aware, it's from a procedural perspective. Firstly, any internal audit needs to be shared with full council as soon as it's received. Yeah. And secondly, it needs to be a matter for consideration. It is not a matter to note. And it's for members to read through the detail of that and come to their own independent view on the benefits of what's taken place. Obviously, as you remember, we moved to a new provider, Helison Lodge, and this is the second of their 2 reports relevant to the old financial year. I won't go through every element that's on pages 42 and 43, but I think it's a good report. It's a detailed report. It highlights some of the positives that are associated with the council. It particularly draws out the fact that we work very closely with our members in our budgeting process, and that was highlighted as a positive by the internal auditor. There are three issues that we would like to do to improve upon. Number one is we would like to make it clear that in the exercise of public rights, that the date of notification needs to be 1 day prior to the public notification of that information, so that any members of the public have the full 30 days to access the accounts and come in and challenge them if they would wish. And that's actually picked up in the AGAR when we discuss that shortly. The second element is that in the vast proportion of cases now, we do not require petty cash because we plan better and we're not required to do that. And we push all payments through BACS. And in certain circumstances, then I would use the council's card. But the need to call upon petty cash has effectively gone away. I think it's an old way of working and I prefer not to use it. And I think from a kind of financial management perspective and the opportunities for fraud, I think it should be discouraged if it possibly can. And we would rather turn that off because we manage things in a better way. And thirdly, one of the opportunities that we have going forward is to better link the software package that we use for our accounting in this council, which is Rialtus. And you can self-populate the AGAR rather than actually doing manual calculations. Ernest has reached out to Rialtus and we've commissioned them to link our account codes to the AGAR so that we can effectively self-populate. That seems like a modern and progressive thing to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Comments, please. No? Go on, Councillor Jones.
Thank you. It's really pleasing to see positive reports coming through. So a huge thank you to everybody involved behind the scenes. I'm broadly supportive of all the recommendations. I just have a question, and I agree it is quite an archaic approach, petty cash, but I do reflect upon those random moments that pop up where you get caught unaware. So I think my question is around, when was the last time we used it? Does it cause you? I know that you've said it won't cause problems, but just reflecting truly when you think the last time it was dipped in and out of, because sometimes it is helpful to have as a backup.
I think since I've been here, we've never used petty cash, so which was pleasing.
So it's not going to cause anybody in the council any
to answer your
struggles
question,
if you're on holiday or something like that.
No. So to answer your question, one supplier in particular, who's a well-established provider in the town centre, had a preference for using this means in regard to remuneration, and we've managed to have a more effective way of paying them. So thank you.
Nicely done. Thank you. Then, yeah, just thank you to everybody for what goes on, and it's always good to see, I suppose, where we can do better with the areas identified as well, because we know that things change. So it's good to be on top of that as well.
Any other comments? Just from the chair, I would like to just again thank the officers for the excellent report there, and I think we highlighted the fact that one so minor discrepancy, which I think is an odd one, which I don't many people have picked up on, but on the whole, a really good report, and it shows the strength of the team that we've got and sort of the processes behind it. So well done. I think we acknowledge that.
Just one point of clarity. The council always follows due process, and even in the exercise of public rights, we follow Mazar's good practice, which is our external auditor. So thank you.
So you've seen the recommendations. Go on, Councillor Strong.
Just going to move the recommendations, and I think it's actually very pleasing the way that our new internal auditors have engaged with the council staff and members in producing the report, because I think it's actually been a little bit more informative than some of our previous reports.
Completely agree. So it's been proposed by, moved by Councillor Strawn, seconders, please. So a couple there. All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Well done. Thank you. I'm going to move then on to the next one, which is the local transport strategic transport response. CBC local transport plan. Now, obviously, there's a a hope from Central Beds that we'll have a response from the council. There is a form to fill in. My proposal, certainly at this stage, it doesn't seem like an appropriate thing to be doing and going line by line within this particular meeting. So, Councillor Woodhead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I was just about to suggest that really. I think we'll be here for a long time going through all the individual questions. But that said, I think the local transport plan is a really important thing. I know a lot of us care about public transport, the bus services, other modes of transport as well locally. So if councillor are agreeing, I'm happy to sort of pull this together and work with one of the officers to submit a submission, if that will kind of speed things up. Well, we have got a bidder title the 30th of June, but whether colleagues are happy for members to sort of contact me and then I can pull it together and work with Funder or one of the other officers or what, because otherwise I fear that we need an institutional or council level response. So we do need to have some sort of funnel to put them in, but at the same time, it's I don't want to sort of overburden the officers. So yeah, just guidance from colleagues on this, but I'm happy as chair of TCM, where it may be an obvious place for it to sit perhaps, but to sort of pull this together and by the 30th of June.
So you're saying something like feedback from individual members come to you and then you consolidate it?
Yeah, with officer help if a lot's come in, but I mean I think I've got an idea of what we would want to say as a council, but I don't want to predetermine everybody's views, if you see what I mean.
Okay, Councillor Skilton.
I thank Councillor Woodhead for his offer to do that. I think I would actually probably prefer some sort of working group meeting to come up with the responses to this. I think this is very important, and I know the members of the public have got to use the Commonplace platform, and at the moment it seems to be limiting people to 5 goes at it. And so, and there are a lot more transport issues than 5 in Biggleswade.
Okay, Councillor Jones, thank you.
This to me was like a red flag to a bull when I read this. About unless I've missed something, in which case I apologise unreservedly. But only 1 month in, and for me, this is the first time that I'd heard about it. So I've probably missed something, or maybe the communication from CBC was not as tight as we might have liked. I again thank Councillor Woodhead for his offer, because my question was, is there a committee which might be able to support this? So that would expedite things significantly. Yeah, I definitely agree we should follow Ms Caldcott's recommendations and promote it on social media as well. Review the presentation, collate views using the form. We need to consider the underutilisation of the transport interchange, which don't even get me started on, the lack of buses and train issues. I thought of Councillor Skilton as soon as I read this, because if we don't get the transport sorted, we will have more cars on the road and you will be very displeased about that, putting it mildly. So I definitely think this is a very important issue. Are we a rural community in the truest sense? I can tell you by the biblical definition of that, but the transport it's not acceptable for our community, and it definitely needs to be looked at. So we definitely need to give really good response to this so that our views are heard, if that's something that is ever counted for at CBC, of course.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Knight, then Councillor Strong.
Thank you. So I think maybe we need a blended approach between Councillor Skilton and Councillor Woodhead's ideas, because yeah, we do need to respond as a council. So my suggestion would be that members who have a passion for this share their completed answers with officers and with Councillor Woodhead, and there may be some places where there's complete alignment, so that's very straightforward. When there are divergent opinions, that's probably where we do need to have a conversation and maybe a debate around it, which could be an informal lunchtime conversation that maybe Councillor Woodhead could chair. So when one of us says strongly agree and when one of us says strongly disagree, we can immediately focus on those areas of difference and hopefully come to some sort of compromise. But hopefully for a lot of this, we'll all be in agreement and it will be quite straightforward.
Okay. Summarised well, Councillor Knight. Thank you. Councillor Strawn and then Councillor Russell.
I think it's thank you, Councillor Woodhead, for volunteering to pull it all together with officers. But I think if you're going to do that, we as councillors need to get something to councillor Woodhead and officers by a set date, and we need to set that now. And then if necessary, it may even need another work meeting between informal meeting just to finalise it, because I don't think we're not going to agree on absolutely everything, even if whether we strongly agree or strongly or just agree. So, but there are certain things such as the timetabling of buses in particular, which are important, which hopefully we've got a consensus on. But to try and deal with this in a big committee, we're never going to get there. We'll be here this time next year with no chance of meeting the deadline of 30th of June.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Russell.
Well, a bit like Councillor Jones, this was red rag to a bull. I mean, all these questions on whether you agree or strongly disagree. I mean, really? So one of them is working to reduce deaths and serious injuries on our road network. So, well, I strongly disagree with that, you know, honestly. I mean, it is so ludicrous that you don't feel as if you want to deal with it at all. And I'd like to suggest that the only bits we deal with are the bits on 55 and 56, which are open questions, where we can put in what is important to the town and what we'd like to see. And I think that if we're going to do that, we really need to look at the existing local transport plan, because I think we need to understand where some of these things are going. And I don't remember all the detail, but I was involved with the last local transport plan. And I think, you know, when you get to that stage, when they actually draft the plan, there'll probably be quite a lot in there that we'll want to say something about. But please, you know, don't waste time on agreeing or disagreeing with some of those ludicrous things.
Okay, nicely summarised also, Councillor Russell, thank you. I'm looking for then some sort of, it sounds like we've got an approach around some feedback going to Councillor Skilting, and then, but not responding to the things directly, and I'm not quite sure where we're going. So I'm looking for a formal proposal. So Councillor Skilting, do you want to make a
formal proposal? I think there are two types of things asked from us, and the one that Councillor Russell disagrees with, whilst some of the phrases are totally ludicrous, probably aims to get a very generic stats about things, which I think we could pull into Excel, and whatever is answerable, not all of them, may give them an opportunity to give that spike in agree, disagree. Whilst the other one is a matter of another discussion and proper meeting, because they're all subjective matters that will need a lot of phrases that we will have to summarize together. So I think whilst the first one, ludicrous as it is an easy part of exercise, the other one will probably need a lot of input, and we'll need to think how we actually best approach it.
Okay, Councillor Skilton then.
So if I can make the proposal that interested councillors submit their completed answers to Councillor Woodhead by the 14th of June, and that Councillor Woodhead collates that and invites us to a informal meeting before the deadline. Yes, you can. Yes, the 15th is fine. Yeah, sorry, we're doing a working thing, but we're volunteers.
Okay. So do I have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Knight and a number of others. All those in favour of that approach, then please show. Okay, well done. Further, perhaps we could just ensure that the format is available. So I guess if there's a way of getting it to members so it can be easily completed, so response could go to Councillor Woodhead in a digital format rather than handwriting it, that might be helpful. Okay, shall we move on to the next item then? So we're on the planning applications. So 10A, 6 Arnold Rise, rear single-storey extension, changes to fenestration and a new boundary wall to be constructed. Comments, please. Are we saying subject to neighbours on that one? There's not much, no nods even. We're happy with that then? Yes, okay, thank you very much. Next one, 6, so this is 10B, 6 Ivor Mill Lane. This is building internal works to move the wall between the bathroom and sitting room. Subject to neighbours, okay, thank you. Next one, Stratton Upper School, Eagle Farm Road, conversion of the existing tennis courts to new park, new car park. And I should say, probably should have declared a minor interest in that I live in Sorrel Way, which is sort of close enough to this address. Councillor Russell.
This application and the next one in Havelock Road have both been withdrawn according to the Central Bedfordshire website, so I don't think we need to consider them.
Thank you. Next one, then we'll go straight on to Maple. So this is 10E 2 Maple Close, 2-storey side and front extensions and relocation of boundary fence. Comments? No, subject to neighbours then, yep.
Just, yeah, if I remember this one correctly from the plans, it looks as though there's going to be a lot of parking spaces, if I've understood the drawings correctly. And in that respect, I think we should be objecting because of the loss of the parking spaces if this goes ahead, because if I'm correct, it's just going to build up and build all over the front.
Okay.
I'd move, we object on that basis.
Do I have a seconder for that approach? No? Okay. So, are we saying then, subject to that, and we're saying subject to neighbours as our response on this? So no objection. No, I'm not seeing any responses here. So, so you're seconding Councillor Strawn. So I'm going to take. We'll take that one to the vote to start with. Then all those in favour, please show. That's 5. Here we go. All those against, please show. Those abstaining, please show. Means that it is carried. Thank you very much. Is that payback, is it? Right, okay, fair enough. We'll move to the next item then, 10F 154 Biggleswade Road. It's in Upper Caldecott, so I'm not quite sure it should be on there, so we'll move on to the next one. 10G Kaiser Court, erection of 2-storey side extension with roof light, etc., etc. Comments, please. Subject to neighbours, yeah, okay. And 10H 11 Palace Street, proposed 2-storey extension plus internal modifications. Subject to neighbours, okay. Lovely, thank you. Next item then is 11A Planning Appeals for Laurels Langford Road. You can read what it is. Any comments, please? It is Langford, so we've previously made some comments on these, but not sensing anyone wishes to go on. Councillor Russell.
Just to note it.
Okay, happy to note. Yep. There's nods, lovely. Okay, next one then we'll move straight on to 12A, plan application outcomes. Any comments in relation to that, please? Again, thanks for all the hard work and putting it together for members to note. Appreciate that. We'll move straight on to the next one then. So we're going to go on to item 13, which is the annual governance and accountability return. I'm going to pass over to Peter to introduce this one.
Thank you very much. So the information that you have in front of you is obviously an important yearly event that we have to complete. The information has been certified by the internal auditor and has also been confirmed as correct by DCK, who do some additional quality assurance for us. And we mustn't forget that the DCK, who used to do significant elements of work for us, the owner of the company who did this piece of work is still the chair of the national accounting body, so he has some eminence connected to the subject matter. So that information is in front of you. If you look on the annual internal audit report that was signed by the internal auditor, we think it's good practice to identify the fact that we need to be clearer in regard to the exercise of public rights, which is why we've ticked that element. And we've also done an explanatory note to the external auditor, which is good practice. So thank you very much.
Okay, so there's three elements to this, although there's 2 points. So the first element is for members to approve the annual governance statement. And then the second element is to members to approve the accounts and accounting statements, both of which I'll need to sign if subject to members being happy with those. And then the third element in there is obviously you'll see that there's a detailed report that's been provided to us by DCK, which gives us a background to sort of other information. Peter, do you want to comment on that one?
And just to clarify, the third element is additional quality assurance. It's not required as part of the process. And indeed, next year we would look to turn that particular piece of information off. But we are going to be meeting with the chair and deputy chair of F&GP to go through the details so that we can be fully explained. Thank you.
Okay, so members' comments, please. Firstly, in relation to the annual governance statement, any comments, please? I see no hands. Councillor Barrett.
Sorry, do you mean the accounting statement?
No, I'm talking about the first one is the annual governance statement. Yep. So that's the first element, and then we'll deal with that first. The clerk and myself will sign that, and then if you're happy, Councillor Strawn.
I propose we approve the governance AGAR report and that the clerk and mayor be authorised to sign the same.
Seconder for that, please. Okay, all those in favour, please show. Okay, thank you very much. So. Okay. So section 2 again is so for members to approve the account and accounting statements contained in the annual return for the 23-24. Any comments, please? Councillor Barrett?
Just one comment and sort of clarification really. On that page, which is page 69 of our pack, item 8, which is the total value of cash, we've got 663,000. Earlier on we had a report about the investments we might make and the percentages we had, which had 445,000 in. Can I just be clear that we have actually got the difference of 220,000 sitting in our cash and other deposits, that these numbers reconcile, because I couldn't find that number anywhere else.
Yes. The answer is yes. We do have 663,000 in the council's bank account at the end of the year. But the definition, if you read the notes to the guidance, it says the sum of all current and deposit bank accounts, cash holdings, and short-term investment held at the 1st of March. So definitely, that is the figure, and according to the records, that was actually my first job when I joined, to do the reconciliation, and I came up to that figure. So we do have that sum in the council's bank account.
Okay, thank you.
So I think what Councillor Barrett might be alluding to here, without spelling it out, it would be helpful for members to have that sort of somewhere, so the numbers show for future reports. I think we're happy that what you're saying is correct, of course, but to make sure so that is evident within the papers.
We're very happy to provide that, and obviously just to give you that assurance again, the auditor's seen that, and so has the chair of DCK.
So there was no doubt there. I don't think it's about having so that it can be interrogated in the right way. So on that basis, all those. So can I have a proposal then, please, that we accept the annual accounting statement as laid out. Let's just you propose to accept it. Seconder elsewhere. All those in favour, then please show. Okay, thank you. I will sign that then. So where am I? This one. You're going to record. You're going to put the minutes. Yeah. And so the doesn't require a motion, but what I'm also going to sign is the DCK report, which is included in the pack. So there. Okay. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item then, which is 13B, the April 2024 position and accounts. You have the some detail within the papers there. Any comments you wish to make, please? Do you want to introduce? Ownership?
I'll be brief. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So this is just month one, and the first comment that I'll make is we've not received enough information because it's only month one, but we've managed to make some few projections. Not the only thing to note is the cemetery income has gone up a bit, and so majority of the budget will be the same as the projected outing. So we are anticipating that at the end of this financial year, we will have a surplus of about 4,617. And also the council did agreed some of up to 45,000 for planning applications appeal. Officers are working very hard to be prudent in order to make some savings, but even though it's early days, we are following the financial regulations rigorously in order to, by seeking 3 quotations for contracts, things like that, in order to generate savings in order to generate some savings so that the account will not be overdrawn by this much. But so this is just a commitment, and it's not been spent yet. I will let Peter.
Yeah, so effectively what we've got here is one single month's perspective, one single month of expenditure. It's obviously not safe at this point in time to project that forward to a 12/12 position. You've got a limited intelligence in front of you at the moment, but obviously as it moves to month 2, you'll get a better sense of business intelligence that you can then use as a platform to project forward. At the moment, as Ernest has done the work, it suggests a small level of underspend, but that intelligence will be informed as we move on into the financial year. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments, members, please. No comments?
If there are no comments, I'll move it be noted.
Okay. Seconders, please show. All those in favour, show. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next item then. Thank you. So next item then is the approval of the annual accounts on Lindsell and updated Dean Lindsell. A written report from Ernest again. Over to you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So the main background will be during the audit, the internal auditor made it very clear that Lindsell's the accounts in Lindsell should be separated because it should be deemed as a charity, which is separate to the council. So I have constructed an income and expenditure for Lindsell's in order to separate the income and expenditure from the council's main accounts. So the auditor has already reviewed these figures. The total income came out to 2,675, and the expenditure came up to about 3,761. So there is a deficit of 1,086. What we officers are proposing is in order to assist the charity, because the council is the sole trustee, in order to assist them balance their budget going forward, we should have up to £2,000 in our booth in order to help the charity be sustainable going forward. Also, one recommendation from the auditor is to identify how we operate as a sole trustee. We contacted Welles Law Group Limited to help us in amending the existing deed for the charity. So in terms of recommendations, 1 and 2, possibly we wanted to stand as officers, but I have contacted the chairman of finance and general purposes and also the deputy, and there've been few observations and few new information after writing this report, and officers would like to defer recommendation 3 because there is a scheduled meeting between officers and the chair of finance and general purposes and the deputy chair of finance, just to understand the implications of the new information and also see before it comes back to the council. So the first recommendation tonight will be for members to approve the accounts for the year ended 2023, and also enable officers to update the figures on the Charity Commission's website. And the second recommendation is for members to approve sum of up to £2,000 from the community grant or any other budget line, which once it's approved, I will look through and come back with out with alternative. But ideally, I wanted it to come from the community grant budget, if it is possible, in order to have the charity balances figures going forward. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Comments, please, Councillor Alba and then Councillor Skilton.
Yeah, so point 2, it's clear that the charity as it is being referred to now is like making a loss, and it needs support. But I'm not happy that money should be taken from the community grant budget. So in the past, that loss has been made up. How this has come out of general reserves, presumably. So if we agree to this, then we will have lost £2,000, which could be allocated in grants, which hasn't been the case in previous years. So I would be opposed to that money coming from there, and perhaps there should be a separate budget set up for this purpose.
Okay, Councillor Skilton. Councillor Strawn and then Councillor Russell.
Right, I think that's actually a very good comment from Councillor Allbone. I think that if we have a separate budget heading for that, so it's kept separate from the community grants, that makes perfect sense. So I think that would be sensible, but we do need to have something in our overall budget to cater for this. So if we can amend that item 2 to that effect, we need to approve the accounts if members are happy, so that we can get the appropriate return to the Charity Commission lodged. So far as the original third part with regard to the deed of variation, I've got a number of observations that I would wish to make anyway on this. So I'd suggest that we defer this so that it can be looked into in more detail and observations made. And if councillors have got any observations they would like, rather as with Councillor Woodhead having comments sent to him on the transport, I might be quite happy if members raise them with me. I shall be arranging to speak with Ernest and the town clerk on this in the very near future, but I've been through the document and there are a number of things I think could be tidied up.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Strawn. Councillor Russell.
I want to take up the point of recommendation 2, because we've just paid this amount out of our normal utility bills in the past. So I'm expecting that there should be an amount that to equal at least some of this deficit within our existing budget. So I fully agree that we should have a separate budget heading, and then we need to just look at the effect on the various utility and other budget headings to see if there might be a projected saving at the end of the year. But I do agree the charity accounts, and I agree with deferring recommendation 3.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thank you. I agree as well. And I'm mindful that we approved earlier to take money from the same fund as well, which makes it even worse. So I think I appreciate we only have a finite amount of money, and there's only so many ways that we can creatively support everybody and everything in the town, but I think that can't be our first port of call each time. So for officers to consider that, because also it makes me think if it's happened in the past and it's happening now, it's going to happen in the future because of the nature of it. So we need to be proactive about how we look at that. And I would also ask officers to proofread this entry before it comes back to reviewing the notes later, so that we don't go over old ground, please.
Okay. So, Peter, do you want to speak on that? Just says
only from a pure accounting perspective. I think, I mean, one solution to this is to effectively via a sum of money from a projected underspend budget, and or what Councillor Russell was suggesting, which were on a budget that's historically accepted the expenditure, which will then counterbalance the other between the 2 and the 4K that will be taken out from the community grant figure. So effectively, you nullify it, you neutralise it. So.
Okay, Councillor Skilson.
Sorry, just quickly. So just this obviously will probably continue to make a loss, and I've got if that's the wrong word for it, but obviously the community benefit to having a cricket club is massive, and so if the town council can support that, it should. And I just think mindful of the bowls club, which we also support, and so as a future piece of work, do we need to look at trying to make all of our clubs at least wipe their face financially?
Councillor Russell.
We can't look at Fairfield in the same way as other clubs because we have a very different relationship. We have a trust of which we, as a town council, are the sole trustee. That doesn't apply to the other clubs. So there's no way that we can do anything differently. I accept what Peter says, but I think that certainly in next year's budget, we need a separate heading which allocates the money that is needed to support the Lindsell's Trust. And as I tried to say earlier, and I'm sure I haven't got the right words and Peter will put me right, but there must be money in our existing budget because we've always paid this amount for the various utilities. So if we can identify that and move that over to a Lindsell's budget, then we should still have the same overall expenditure for the council, unless we've not budgeted correctly, but I suspect we have budgeted correctly.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Russell. Councillor Strong.
Just as a matter of interest, I noticed on the electricity quote, there is actually a specific sum set out for the Lindsell Memorial Pavilion as to the electricity charge. So that is already catered for in part, but I would hope that we'll be able to report to F&GP's next meeting on the way forward with regard to the accounting, with regard to the trust, because clearly there's been a lot of movement in terms of practicalities, such as with the opening of the new bank accounts for that. So it'll be a lot clearer. This is going to be the first year that we've got effectively a totally clean situation with regard to the trust, rather than being mixed in as it has historically. So we've got a new start, and we'll try and make sure that from the Finance General Purposes Committee that we've actually got a clear picture as to how it's working.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Agnew.
Very quickly, I think we're talking about maintaining some kind of contingency amount. And because looking at the expenses, not all of them are actually predictable at all. It seems like not very clear what the ground maintenance building and all of this is, and whether it is actually regular expense. Maybe we could just think of a strategy where we have a fixed amount, a percentage of the amount that we regularly lodge into that account, like ways of raising it within ourselves internally.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Agnew. I'm going to go to Councillor Barrett and then Councillor Strawn.
I've lost track of where we are. I'm thinking that what we're agreeing to is number 1 and 2, and that we will have a separate budget for the £2,000.
Well, I think we are agreeing to the principle. We are agreeing to 1, and we are agreeing to the principle of 2, but not taking it out of the community grant or the grant budget.
And
effectively,
we're suggesting Councillor Strawn would take that away to review. Was that what I heard?
Item correct. So item 3 would be deferred. So officers, I think, are withdrawing it if that's if possible. But either way, I think there's a proposal that we defer the item 3. But so I think we need to be clear on it.
Just for absolute clarity, just to aid the debate. So effectively, officers are suggesting that we change number 2 to recognise that the £2,000 should now be taken from either what Councillor Russell was suggesting, the natural budget of which it was absorbed in the previous year, to make sure that actually there's no call on the community grant budget.
Correct. Thank you. So on that basis, so that's the sort of proposal. I'm not sure it was seconded. So is it proposed by Councillor Jones, seconded by someone? All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Right. Shall we move on? So we've got item 14, the items of information, proposed temporary road closure of Mead End for members to receive the attached. Are we happy to note that?
Note it.
Thank you. Next, Biggleswade access for all, stakeholder update, members to receive the attached. I think we've seen this already, but Councillor Russell, please feel free to comment.
Just to say that Network Rail are observing PERDA during the election period, so the meeting that we should have had of the Access for All group will not take place. There are one or two things in here that have been discussed at the Access for All group that are a bit different to what's here, but there's no point in going into all of that. We'll establish the veracity of everything because Mr. Hosseini and I both attend the Access for All.
Okay, thank you. So we are noting. Next item then is the A1 Biggleswade North A1 Junction Stockfold. Are we noting? Have you any comments on that? Councillor Knight?
The official diversion is ludicrous, but note it.
Yes, thank you. They tend to be. Next, temporary road closure of London Road. Again, comments on that one? No, are we noting that one as well then? Thank you very much. So we're going to then move on to the public open session to adjourn. Do we have any members of the public present? No. So I'll move the proposal that is advised in the public interest, the public and press are excluded while the following exempt item issue is discussed. Planning update. Do I have a second of that proposal? I said, everybody, okay.